But let's talk about it. For people who still think therapy only counts of getting to be in a room, what would you say to them? Because I know there's a lot of people that feel that you still have to be in a room. And what you mentioned, I loved it. I love that people are coming out of their shells virtually. And I can actually see that happening because they feel more comfortable in their space. Makes complete sense. But what is your thoughts on that for those that still feel that they need to be in the room?
Yeah, I think that people who feel those feelings, like, we're not trying to get rid of that, right? Like, we don't at Charlie Health, like, our we have a lot of clients that call us that clearly need in-person therapy for one
Hmm.
reason or another. And so we will refer them to in-person therapy if that's something that they want. And so I think that that's definitely, something that we are like huge advocates of, which is like there are times that you need to be in a room with a person. It's just about access. It's so funny. It's like when we first started, we had a lot of these conversations, especially with payers, where they would talk about this idea of in person versus virtual. And, we do something very specific. We do intensive outpatient programming. That's 9 hours of group therapy a week, 1 hour of individual, 1 hour of family, psychiatry. It can be up to 12 hours of therapy a week.
Wow.
And that's hard to come by in an in-person setting. And so for a lot of times we would end up in these conversations with them where they would be like, well, which one's better, in person or virtual? And we're like, well, that's like a really fun philosophical debate to have, for the 7% of people that have access to a brick and mortar intensive outpatient treatment
Hmm.
program. And by the way, that 7%, there's a 6 to 8 week waiting list, average wait list for intensive
Wow.
outpatient programming. So it's like, which one's better? It's not about which one's better, virtual or in person. It's which one's better, virtual or nothing. Because for this particular level of care, like, this is something that, so many people don't have access to. And so for us, that's like a big part of it. But I think too, like, even when we talk about outpatient therapy, therapists are on wait lists, in-person therapists. And so I think that it's really tough, and it just makes it more accessible.
I'm not saying that I go to therapy all the time. Obviously, I've been there once, and I went there because I became a father for the first time. And as I mentioned to you, my mom had 10 kids, father had eight, and I grew up feeling why me, the unloved, all these different things that you
Yeah.
can feel. And when I had my first child, I just remember breaking down. I don't know still to this day what it was, but my wife looked at me. She was going through postpartum, so she was going through to therapy. And she mentioned, "Hey man, I have a session today, but it seemed like you might want to go instead of me." And I did, and I'll tell you that was the best experience. And before that, I was telling you I had virtual, but I'm also a big fan to tell people, as you mentioned, virtual works for some people, in person works for others.
Yeah.
And I'm not opposed to the virtual, but I do look at it as it is it's almost like finding a relationship. That first therapist is not going to be the one, but that doesn't mean you just give up on yourself, right? You got to go find someone that you can relate to. And I think when we talk about someone like myself, that I went to school and I was living this until probably 15, 16 years old, of sexual abuse, the adoption in my mind. We didn't talk about this at home, right? What is your thoughts for those that may watch this, that at home they're saying that, you don't have therapy, you don't talk about your problems, you don't XYZ? Because in reality, what I realized to this day, 30 something years old, there's still trauma that sometimes I realize is creeping out. I'm like, wait a minute, where's it coming from, right? What are your thoughts and what do you say to those people?
Well, two things. One is trauma lives in the body. And
Hmm.
so, what that means is that there's a lot of somatic work that needs to be done, oftentimes, to help to release that trauma. So, even your experience walking around and watering your plants, that's going to be an experience in your body where you're able to release some of that, because that's going to be a big part of it. Um, and then, I mean, I think that another big part of this has to do with the fact that so many individuals that, live in a position where they are told that their thoughts are not valuable, or
Hmm.
that their words don't mean anything, finding someone, anyone. And that's what the research shows us, right? The research shows us that you don't even necessarily need a parent. It could be a teacher, it can be a coach, it could be a friend's parent. But that if you have one person that you can talk to and be vulnerable with, and that hears you and sees you, that you are going to be in a much, much better position, and that's going to be a huge protective factor for you in the future. So
I
that's
love
what I
that.
would tell them.
Yeah. I also love that we're in a space now. You mentioned pandemic a little earlier. The pandemic really changed what mental health looks like for the world, because now it's something that we talk very openly, right? And you hear it all the time. And I've even had my little nieces would say something like that, like, "Oh, I'm stressed, or I'm this," and my daughter was like, "What do you know about that?" But no, that's them speaking out, and we have to really be very mindful of what they're saying. So I do love the space that you're in. I think what's even cooler is that you've lived it, right? The addiction, the recovery, and now in the leadership. So I'm a big believer that you know the truth on what makes a better healer, right? So it's really cool that we go through life at times, like myself, all that, and yourself, you've still overcome adversity. That we still become the testimony to someone else's story. Because the more that we share, the more that we put ourselves into this place, the more that we can truly help. So when you talked about earlier about your purpose and God still have something for you, it was truly for you to just help other people change the mindset. To my favorite motto is know your worth. And I was at a school one time, and this kid won something. I forgot what it was, but I was like, I want to leave him with something that allowed him to know that I see him. And it was a shirt that says "Know Your Worth," right? Because a lot of times we don't. I used to be told that I sound like a girl, so I would never. I hated my voice.
Mm.
So early on in my 20s, I would never go back and watch a video that I did because I just hated my voice. So I love that you're in this space. I love that you're sharing your testimony and really making a big difference for others. You're the face of a clinical organization and also in recovery. Has that transparency ever felt really risky?
I feel really strong in my sobriety, and I think that it would be risky if I didn't. But I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by other individuals that are in recovery. My husband's in recovery, my best friend's in recovery. So for me, the risk of like how far the armor that I've built up against relapse is so strong that it doesn't feel like I don't think about it regularly. It doesn't feel risky at all. It feels like that's just who I am and a part of my story. And yeah, I don't necessarily feel that way.